20 years ago, in 1998, is when I started this. And Peter had been on it probably for a couple of years before that. I had worked with Peter on a couple of other of his films, The Frighteners and Heavenly Creatures. So we had a kind of a working rapport going on. Anyway, in 1998, he called me down to Wellington because we live in different cities. He said, we're going to be making The Hobbit. He said, we're going to be making The Hobbit. And so I thought, well, that's going to be a pretty, tough to do that because it's a very, very famous book and all that sort of stuff. And then about the next day, he let the cat out of the bag and he said, it's actually Lord of the Rings. We're doing that book instead. He said he wasn't so crazy about The Hobbit. He couldn't get the rights to it anyway, but he had the rights to be able to, an opportunity to be able to make The Lord of the Rings. So it had to be made within a certain period of time. We had to start filming within a couple of years, I think it was. It took 2 years of preparation. Back at the beginning, it was not going to be 3 films, it was going to be 2 films, and the project was owned by Miramax. They only wanted to make 2 films and sort of compress the three books into two films. But then they came back to us about 6 months later and they said, well, we can't afford to do 2 films, we have to do 1 film. We have to do Lord of the Rings in 1 film, which we're all pretty depressed about, because we're never going to be able to do it justice, especially the way we wanted to do it for real, from, absolutely taking the words of the page and putting it onto the screen. Thankfully, Miramax wasn't able to raise the finance or whatever, and Peter took the project with him to basically under his arm to a few people up in Hollywood. Drawings we'd done, some models and the script and things like that, and he took it to New Line and they just went with it. So they said, we're going to do 3 films, we're going to do it exactly the way you wanted to do it. So we were thrilled about that. It couldn't be better.
This is the One Ring, forged by the Dark Lord Sauron. Sauron needs only this ring to cover all the lands of a second darkness.
We were making all 3 films at once, so that all 3 films were all shot concurrently. But having said that, the first film sort of took precedence, I guess. In the main production shoot, I'm guessing about half of that would have been doing Fellowship of the Ring, the very first film, because it was tremendously important that we get a lot of people looking at that to be able to, justify the other 2. The second 2 films, even though we're shooting them at the same time, there's a big chunk of post-production filming, sort of pickups that were done for episode 3 in retrospect. So, they're all done at the same time. There was hundreds and hundreds of sets we had to do, hundreds of locations we had to go and find and service. And, the whole scope of it was massive, of course. So, being able to do all that stuff at the same time was a big thing to do.
Every time that you were trying to prepare a set or you have to choose a location, do you have to think on the way that, okay, we have to put this back the way it was before?
Absolutely. It's not just because we have to, it's because we want to, because New Zealand's a small place. A lot of the work we were doing was in national parks. They sort of try and suppress commercial activities in those sorts of places. We had to go to quite high sort of political chain to be able to use some of these places, like Mount Doom and The Return of the King was shot on a national park on a volcano in the middle of the North Island. Ultimately, we had to take, tray by tray of these things out and put them in a glass house and keep them absolutely in pristine condition, and then to clear an area for us to be able to stage this battle. And then at the end, it all had to be brought back in again and sort of put back where they were taken from. It took a year of Greens people and Department of Conservation people to resettle everything in before they signed it off. Tourism business in New Zealand grew by 40% overnight after that. Everybody wanted to come to New Zealand to see where they shot Lord of the Rings, but also sort of coincided with New Zealand sort of being discovered on the tourism map anyway, because most of the world didn't know where we were. It had a massive spin-off for that, and still now, even today, 20 years later, I think it's like 3% of the people who come into the country come in because of Lord of the Rings.
What business does an elf, a man, and a dwarf have in the Riddermark?
The book itself, particularly for Fellowship of the Ring, had a lot of description that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote into the pages. So we were, like for Hobbiton, we were really able to go through line by line and figure out, okay, Bag End is here, the party field is there, and everything kind of geographically related to each other. So it was almost more a case of finding a location that matched the book than, the other way around. So, there was a lot of clues. But then by the time the second and third movies came along, we had pretty good encyclopedic knowledge of everything to do with Tolkien's books and the Silmarillion and the Hobbit and all of his books, and all that in combination sort of gave us more confidence to be able to kind of design our own thing that sort of suited the story. It was 2 years of prep and another year and a half of shoot. The first episode was done kind of way more analog, really. We had digital technologies and all that sort of stuff here, but just what it could do back then was so much less at the beginning of the film than at the end of the film. A massive amount of development work went on at Weta Digital during that process to be able to make Gollum what he is, and to, in particular, there's a program called Massive, which was the digital extras. So being able to do all these massive army battlefield scenes. That was brand new technology that was developed by Weta Digital for that project. So the confidence, Peter's confidence, and all of our confidence in the digital, being able to achieve shots digitally, grew and grew and grew. So by the time the last episode came out, way more digital shots than that.
Cannot wield it. None of us can. The ring must be destroyed.
It was made in the fires of Mount Doom. Only there can it be unmade.
The first one we did, the Fellowship of the Ring, we were trying to do scale with, with the hobbits and the ground people in camera. So getting people, the small people way back there, and the big people kind of close to camera to try and get the scale thing. So we used to figure all that stuff out, all the lenses and all the camera angles and all that sort of stuff, for not just for people but for architecture as well. So do big pieces of architecture and small pieces of architecture and kind of get them all in the one frame. It's pretty thrilling to do that. But like I say, by the last film, everything, all that sort of stuff was being done digitally.
How do we know Frodo is alive?
What does your heart tell you?
Viggo Mortensen is the ultimate sort of method actor. Man, he went with his costume and his horse into the forest during pre-production to sort of camp out and kind of get to know his horse and work in his costume and all that sort of stuff. He was the man.
Give him the sword of the king.
Become who you were born to be.
We never make one sword. There's always multiple swords. So the swords for sword fighting, which are usually made of aluminium, which are a little lighter weight, and then hero swords for when you get really close up to it, etc., and doubles of all those things. So, but yeah, we try to, in films generally, try to do things for real, because that's what we've got to do.
Yeah.
If you don't believe the sword, you don't believe the story. Peter got together a lot of the best battle scenes that he'd ever seen on cinema before, and had a look at what made them good. What made all these battle scenes, and what are the best shots, and what are the best action sequences that kind of get people excited. So it's not as though he copied them, but he did his homework really, and kind of what made a good battle scene. And then there's a matter of just choreographing, storyboarding, planning how it's going to work onto a particular location. What technologies are they using, to fight with? And yeah, it's a thrilling thing to be involved with, for
And
sure.
were you contacted by the people that is making the TV show that is coming for Amazon? Did they phone you to maybe ask you for insights or ask you for opinions about the work?
But they are doing their own thing. Actually, they're doing it in the same city that I live in. But no, I decided kind of early on that I wasn't going to be involved with that, and they never really approached me personally. You know, they may have gone through my agent to talk about it, but I think they knew that I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't think we could better what we did in 2000 and 2000, 2001, 2002. You know, I think, personally, I think they should just leave it alone myself and kind of let it live on its own as a great project and not trying to kind of, I don't know.
But you know that people is going to compare the things that we're going to see in the TV show with the thing
Yeah.
with the trilogy. You are aware of that.